Carl. Carl. Need more volume on this. It's too quiet. Here's the way I like to do this. After 65 years, you can bring the volume on this way up, and I can. Okay, see. No, I can control that from here. I can pull back and I can come forward. So in other words, I can create the volume. So if I got to talk to you about it. I know how to stop feedback. That is why I sing thoughts beyond compare. I'm gonna take a trip on that old gospel ship and go sailing through the air. You know I can hardly wait. I know I won't be late. I'll spend my time in prayer. And when that ship comes in, I'm going to leave this world of sin and go sailing through the air. Well, if you're ashamed of me, you ought not to be, lest you better have a care. And when that ship comes in, I'm gonna leave this world of sin and go sailing through the air. Play it together. On that old gospel ship, I'm going far beyond the sky. I'm gonna laugh and sing till the bell's gonna ring when I bid this world goodbye. Oh! Somebody say yeah.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together in worship each week to honor what is of worth. In this hour, we pause the everyday rush and flow of our lives in reverence and thanksgiving, to connect with the sacred, to remember our commitments to ourselves, each other, and the world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are welcome to bring your full self here. We know that there are many ways that you can be spending your Sunday morning, and we're honored that you have chosen to spend it here with us. I'm the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. Our worship leader this morning is Jim Turner. Our tech hosts are Monica Tasada and Carl Wittenberg. If you're joining us on Zoom, please know that you have closed captioning to help with hearing. And if you're joining us here in the meeting house, we have hearing-assisted devices that should be helpful to you. And know also that we welcome your children to remain in the sanctuary during worship for Quiet Play with Kim. I have a few announcements this morning. There is about a week left to participate in the Stop and Shop Bloomin' for Good program. This is one of their community outreach programs. For every bouquet bought at the Stop and Shop in East Hampton, $1 of that purchase goes to support our little food pantry. And that will be through the end of the month. And we have Jean Honig to thank for connecting us to that program. So far, this is the third time that we've been the recipient of their community outreach program. Our Care and Connection team will be meeting on Monday at noon at Panera Bread. And on Thursday is the next meeting of our Death Cafe, an opportunity to gather to talk about death. And there's cake. Angel. Later today, we hope that some of you will be able to join Adelaide Mestry for her show at the Southampton Cultural Center. You've heard a little bit of Adelaide's story here from this pulpit. You definitely have heard her beautiful singing in this room. This is an opportunity for you to get a fuller picture of what she is bringing to us and a fuller picture of her story. And later today, here at noon, immediately after this service, we hope you'll stay for our HICO meet and greet, our high impact community outreach meet and greet, an opportunity to learn more about this year's recipients and also to meet them and hear about how we can be involved in the important work they're doing in our community. You can find more information about how to connect to events in our e-bulletin or on our website. And if you have announcements that you'd like to share, please get them to the office no later than Tuesday of the week you want them announced. Do we have any visitors who would like to introduce yourselves this morning? Welcome, Ellen. Introducing Ellen, a visitor in your house who lives in East Hampton, Bridgehampton. But had been living in Sag Harbor. I'm repeating back because people who are joining us on Zoom won't hear you if you're not on the microphone. But they'll hear me repeat it back. Welcome Deb, who I'm going to shorten, works with the Bridgehampton Child Care Center, one of the recipients of one of our HICO grants this year. We're glad you're here. We're glad both of you are here. Welcome Ellen, introducing Ellen, a visitor in your house who lives in East Hampton, Bridgehampton. But had been living in Sag Harbor. I'm repeating back because people who are joining us on Zoom won't hear you if you're not on the microphone. But they'll hear me repeat it back. If you are joining us online visiting or here in person visiting, please do sign our guest book. It's how we are able to be in touch with you and how we're able to keep you in touch, informed about what we're doing here at the Meeting House. I want to invite you now to take a moment, either in person or in the chat, to greet your neighbor or someone you haven't greeted yet this morning. I should have invited you that if you did bring something to add to our altar of remembrance, that would have been a smooth and easy time to do it. You also will be invited to do that during our offering. Our theme this month is love. And so on this Sunday, when we remember our departed loved ones, this is an opportunity to reflect on the enduring quality of love that transcends even death. We light our chalice with these words from Andrea Hawkins Camper. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheels turn and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophecy, to complete our harvest before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we have always been, the voice of a people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we have always done, united by story and bound by love. This first song that we'll sing together is in your teal hymnal, song 1001, Breath, but we'll have a video accompaniment for this song. I want to warn you that when you look at the song in your hymnal, it looks complicated. It's not as complicated as it looks. It starts with the chorus, and then you move to the first verse, and back to the front page for the chorus, and then the second verse, and back to the front page for the chorus. Multi-page hymnals can seem especially complicated. I'm going to invite you to stand as our tech are queuing up that song for us. Song 1001 in your teal hymnal, Breath.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are in the crying grass, they are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast, they are in the wailing child. They are with us in the home, they are with us in the crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Listen more often to things than to beings. 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 'Tis the ancestors' breath. 'Tis the ancestors' breath.
You all are spectacular. Takes a little bit of loosening. Our first message this morning, I don't know that we have little ones who can't see beyond the chairs, but this is a story, a once upon a time story. So it is an opportunity for anybody who wants to move closer. But long, long ago, when God made the first people and prepared to put them on the earth, God asked them if they would rather die like the moon or like a banana tree. And the people did not understand They did not know how to answer God's question. They wondered, what was it to die? What would it be like to die like a banana tree? And what would it be like to die like the moon? And so they asked God these questions. God explained to them that the moon dies every month. It slowly but surely gets smaller and smaller in the sky until it is only a tiny sliver, a tiny silver sliver. But then, the moon is reborn and grows bigger and bigger and bigger every day until it is round and full in the sky. Every month it is the same. The moon grows smaller and then bigger, exactly the same way, over and over, forever. The people thought about this. They weren't sure they liked the idea of getting smaller and smaller until they died, but it was reassuring to think that they would always be born again. What would it be like to die like the banana tree? One of the people asked. God answered, the banana tree must die, and it will never come back. But first, it puts out green shoots that grow up to be a new banana tree. Before dying, the banana tree helps create a new life. And so which one will you choose? God asked. The people considered this for a long time. Which should they choose? Which would you choose? It's not entirely rhetorical. Which would you choose? Banana tree. The people talked about it for a long time. Looking into the sky at night, they watched the moon, which was beautiful and full. If they chose the moon, they would never die. But life might get lonely and boring. There would be no one else. If they chose the banana tree, they would have children to love, but in time, they would grow old and die. Finally, they decided they would rather experience joy and the miracle of bringing new life into the world, even if it meant that they would not be reborn like the moon. They told the God that they would rather die like the banana tree. And so it was that the first people came to be, and the first people chose love. They had many children together, and their children had many children. Their children filled their hearts and their lives with joy and miracle for all the days of their lives. And finally, when they were very old, the time came for the first pair to return to the earth, never to come back again. Just as the banana tree does when it dies. And since that time, all humans must die and make room for new life. May your roots grow deep. May your branches spread far. May you find this world to be a wonderful place, full of joy and life and children and birth. And may you leave it better for those who follow.
Love me tender, no. dark and sunny side of life. There's a bright and a sunny side too. Although we meet with darkness and strife, sunny side we also may view. Keep on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It'll brighten every day. It will brighten every day. It will help us. It will help us all the way. If we keep on the sunny. You know, my drummer couldn't make it because someone had a little hand clap. Because there's 2, 3, 2, 1, 2. You know what to do. So I play it.
There we go. We support the work of this congregation through the talent of our music and our singing and our participation, and also through the gifts of our pockets. Your financial contribution helps to support the life and ongoing work of this congregation here in our walls and out in the world. Your contribution to the Helping Hand Fund, one of the baskets that will be circulating, supports local organizations in need. Your contributions to the General Fund supports the work of this congregation. Both baskets will get to both sides, and your contributions, however you give, will be gratefully received. If you brought something for our altar, I want to invite you to bring that forward now as well.
Storm and fury struck today, crushing hopes we cherish so dear. Clouds and storms in time will pass away, and the sun again will shine both bright and clear. Hey, clapping now, a little more clapping on this, please. My drummer couldn't make it. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side. It'll help us every day. It'll brighten. It'll help us every day. It will brighten all the way. We'll keep on the sunny side. One more time. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side alive. Well, it'll help us every day. It will brighten all the way. If you keep on the sunny side of sunshine forever. I love my ancestors.
I'm going to invite you, with all of the joy and energy in your heart and flowing through your body right now, to take a deep breath. Feel yourself connected in this space and this time, in this moment. As we enter into this time of meditation and reflection. These words are from the Reverend Tanya Marquez. Every year, around this time, there is a distinctive smell in the air, and the trees sway like the whisper of 1,000 voices. That's how I know they are coming. At that point, the perpetual altar in my heart begins taking place outside of me for a few days. And it dances with joy and the thought of their coming. First, the table that will be the altar. A few boxes on top to create different levels. I begin to think about the pictures I am adding to my altar today. The beloved friend who didn't get to say goodbye. The one I loved. My grandparents. The cousin who left too soon. I allow myself to think about the ones whose pictures won't be on my altar, but that I still remember. The fragrance of the cempasúchil, the marigold, fills the air. Grandfather's son made flower, a ray of light guiding them back, calling them home. It is a long way here. It is good to have some food and drink ready, so they may quench their thirst, so they may eat and gain strength for the way back. I love adding chocolate and drinking chocolate caliente. I imagine a moment of communion that transcends the world of the living. Once the altar is ready, I behold the sight of this place of encounter. They will come and will know that they have been missed. All of the time we spent together, all of the memories come rushing to us. Our elders tell us to remember is to live again. And that's what we do when we allow ourselves to be surrounded by their presence and the stories of times we spent together. My family and I gather, we tell stories, we laugh, we also cry a little. We rejoice in their company. Their stories come alive in our telling, and so does the love we still feel. I have learned to listen more often to things than to beings, to listen to my heart that knows a different way of knowing. My heart knows that the dead aren't really dead. Their stories are perpetually being told by the world around us, like trees swaying, like the whisper of 1,000 voices. You are invited now to share your joys and your concerns. If you're joining us here in the meeting house, we invite you to come to the microphone so that we can all hear. If you are joining us online, we invite you to unmute yourself so that we may spotlight you. We won't be able to spotlight you unless you open your video. We have another song to sing together. Again, the song is in your gray hymnal. It's number 311, Let It Be a Dance. And the words will also be on the screen in front of you. As we consider our dance with death, I invite you to stand as you feel willing and able, and indeed, let it be a dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the word, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need to reap the harvest, plant the seed. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Oh, it's a tiny, tiny desk.
I always underestimate, overestimate, miscalculate how much time I will have to speak when some music really gets going. And I do want us to have time to go outside. And so I want to shorten my remarks by asking you or telling you the premise for our Dance with Death this morning. A few weeks ago, and I don't know if they will remember this, but one of the questions that emerged from the worship committee is, why do Americans fear death so much? Sometimes this is asked as, why are Americans so weird about death? So I want to ask you a question. This is a fist to 5 question. Fist to 5, where fist is 0 and 5 is a lot. Where fist is, I welcome death with delight and joy. And 5 is, I fear death, my own and others. How are you about death? I'm getting some indecisiveness. A lot of 3s, some 4s and 0s and 1s, and the only other person who's a 0, oh, there are a few other 0s, my fellow banana tree. If not weird about death, not weird about death, however you feel about death, that's how you feel, it's not weird. But a lot of us have fear, anxiety about death. One of the reasons that researchers posit has to do with our proximity to death. With improved working conditions, improved living conditions, we are not as close to death as we were 100 years ago. This is the Pinker progress proposition, that society is ever advancing, ever progressing, and as we do, death is further and further away from this. Some of this is about progress, and some of it is about advances in science and medicine, about the professionalization of death. People don't die at home as much as they used to. And so increasingly, more and more over time, death is further and further away from us. But there are also some studies that talk about age and religion. And this one might seem counterintuitive, but the older we are, the less we fear death. And one of the reasons that is perspective, but there might be some others which I'll save for later. But the thought about religion is what is most interesting. Would you say that people who are very religious fear death more, or people who are not religious fear death more? Very religious, very religious. not religious, you are both right. Because here's the deal. People who are very religious and people who are not religious actually both have less fear of death. It is the people in the middle who are moderately religious who fear death more. And when they look at not just religiosity, but the kind of religion, this is where it gets most interesting, because people who are more intrinsic, whose religion is more about theological belief, fear death less. Those of us whose religion is extrinsic, which is more social and emotional or ethical, fear death more. Very religious, they've got it covered. Not religious at all, they don't care. But those of us swirling in the middle, pondering the great questions of life and death and who we are and how we are to be with each other. These are the ones who have to think about and work about death. And so at this time of year, we here reflect on death because this is the time of year so many of our ancient traditions tell us that the veil is more thin, that the gate between the living and the dead flies open. In ancient European traditions, we might be more familiar with Halloween, or All Souls Day, or All Saints Day. Thoughts about death are scary. Halloween, the traditions, the customs around Halloween, lighting a bonfire, dressing up, that is to scare away death, to scare away ghosts. And All Saints Day and All Souls Day, dedicated to remembering the dead, but not so much to celebrating and welcoming in. It's Dia De Los Muertos, where we are encouraged to celebrate with, welcome in, laugh and sing and eat and dance with our dead. It's celebrated mostly in Mexico and now outward, where people with Mexican roots have traveled. The belief is that on that first night in November, the gates of heaven open. And that is when our beloved are able to travel and join with us. And so we prepare a place for them. We welcome them. We show our gratitude for the ways that they have touched our lives. And we celebrate that we will one day join them. Not mourning, but celebration. And so when we consider our remembrances of the dead, I invite you to enter into that remembrance with celebration, though it may be alongside mourning. And as we think about us, middle-of-the-road Westerners, neither fearful of death nor untouched by it, those same studies that tell us that older people worry less about death tell us that the reason this is because older people, those who do worry less about death, are more connected with young people, for one, more connected with generations that are coming up, that they cultivate meaning in their own lives, and that they explore death with an open heart and an open mind. And so our very practical invitation for you this week is to, if you have not, check out our Death Cafe. The Death Cafe as a concept started about a decade ago in 2011, The goal is not to mourn, or it's not a bereavement group. It is simply to increase awareness about death, to help people make the most of their lives. And when you go on the big old international website to look for a death cafe near you, our little congregation shows up. In a few moments, we are going to go out into our own memorial garden. We'll read the names of our beloved. I'll invite you to share the names of your beloved who are not in our garden. But first, these words from the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. They are with us still in the struggles we choose for ourselves and the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by this vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us, call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. Marina's going to carry our chalice for us. I'm going to carry our Zoomers. We're all going to troop outside. It's windy and not rainy. All right, I got our Zoom folks. I think I have audio. I lost that microphone though. Very. Can you hear us on Zoom? You can signal.
Can you see your signal? Is there?
I hear you well, Reverend Kimberly. The video feed is flaky, but your audio seems to be okay.
Technology is flaky sometimes.
Good. Jerry just popped up. Can you hear?
Jim, I think we're going to read the in case it is working.
Okay. Claire Wolf, Cheryl Foster, Ken Wisner, Eamon Fearon, Eleanor Swan, Tom Taylor, Ruth Lang, Betty Ann Needle, Sunshine Lemon, Martin Ford, Larry Andrews, Eleanor McDade, Jerry Murphy, Leonard Farman, Dorothy Dowsomer, Philip T. Dowsomer, Charlotte Kerner, Manuel Kerner, Carolyn Wilbur, Viola Freyberg, Mark Fiedler, Shannon Murphy Comer, Alex Fitzgerald, Paul Berman, George Wool, Elizabeth Kenner, Charles Coulter, Mark Logan, Chris Epstein, Jacobson, George Darcy, Steve Smith, Mildred Granite, Keith Lippman, George Whitehead, James Mason. And now I will read a message for people who have recently died but do not have a memorial written in their name. Names these congregants who have passed and as of yet have not named strict based on the garden order. These we also remember. So if you have a name of someone that has passed and not yet have a brick, please say it now.
Danek Zasada.
This now concludes the name reading as part of this service. Thank you.
For all of our beloveds, those we knew and those we did not. Memory alive in our hearts and in our rituals. Invite you to sing together, Spirit of Life. The words are in your order of service.
E. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in our hands, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We extinguish our chalice with the unison words, also in your order of service. Extinguish flame, but not the truth. The warmth of fire. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
The wind blew it out. We're trying to Molly.
They say everything can be played. They say innocence is not real. Yet I remember everything of every man and woman. I see my light shine, shine from the west down any day now. I shall be. Every man needs protection. They say that every man must fall. Yet I swear I see my reflection somewhere so high. I understand this man. That's a man who swears he's not to do. All day long I hear crying so loud, just crying out. I've seen my life shine, shining from the west down. Any day now. Any day. I shot.